Welcome to the Infinite Spark of Being podcast. My name is Keith Welsh. In this episode, we're going to talk about language, specifically the language we use around God, how it has shaped a culture, how it's shaped our lives personally. Even those of you that have no relationship or concept of God, you do not know how much this has shaped your life. And for some of us, how it's affected us spiritually, personally, things like that. This is really about the importance, once again, of language. Language being a cognitive faculty of the mind that essentially it's symbols that tells the body how to feel about stuff. That's pretty important, considering most of you do everything that you do simply based on how you feel. So go to the website. Before we get into that, go to the infinitesparkofbeing.com and you'll see that participate/donate button. If you'd like to donate money, you like the content that I'm providing here, you can do that quickly through Venmo or PayPal. It's always appreciated. The last donation came with a note on Venmo that said, "Thanks for keeping it real." And that was very cool. So I appreciate it, and I will continue to keep it real. The participate there, participate through Patreon. Sign up through the Patreon. Twice a month, we have groups. The first Wednesday of every month, that's the Journey tier. That's $10 a month. It's kind of a good, let's get started on some of these concepts. The third Wednesday of every month gives you access to the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday, but that is the Awake tier. That's $20 a month. So for $10, you get one group. $20, you get two groups. And there is a third group coming. Some of our community members were interested in a Bhagavad Gita study group, and that is something that I was a little hesitant on, and then I realized that I absolutely want to do this. I realized it one night while reading the Bhagavad Gita, which I do most evenings. If you don't want to sign up for the Patreon and you just want to go month to month or meeting to meeting or whatever, you can do that for $20 through Venmo or PayPal. Just please be sure you get me your email address so that I can get you the access to the group. It's done through Google Meet, not through Zoom. What else? Oh, the About button. Click the About button, read a little bit about me, see what I have to offer you. I am going to be doing an episode. It'll probably be out. This will be out a Friday, and then the next Monday, this next episode will be out, that it kind of goes over what thought transformation restructuring does, more about what I do one-on-one with people. And I'm doing that because this podcast will begin coming out at 5 a.m. on Mondays. Based on the research done by the people that know, that's a good time and day. So, fuck me, I've been releasing this thing at the wrong time. Anyway, always be sure to share this with people, have people, go on the Apple. I think it's Apple allows you to rate it and give me a bunch of stars and say nice things. Okay, the store there. Buy something. It helps support this, and I really appreciate it. Third book, on its way. It's being edited right now. Turns out Grammarly doesn't catch everything. Fucking Grammarly. Been thinking about doing some endorsement stuff and getting rid of the weird advertisements and instead me just actively endorsing things. So maybe I ought to throw Grammarly in that bucket of things that I use a lot. I do use Grammarly constantly. So far, I could think of Grammarly, Rollrock, which is they make running shit, and just adventurous clothing, I guess. And Kaichava. Those are three things that I swear by. Anyway, if any of you are listening from those three companies, get at me. Let's talk. All right. I'm trying to get rid of these weird advertisements that happen. I love it when you guys let me know that somebody reached out once and said, "Hey, just so you know, an advertisement for synthetic breast milk came in about halfway through this podcast," and it was pretty funny. So I had no idea that was even a thing. All right, so language. Oh, if you're interested in these things, you want me to do a workshop, you want to meet with me one-on-one, you want me to give a talk at your yoga school, whatever it is, reach out through email or Instagram direct message, Facebook direct message. Okay, enjoy the Patreon. We're building something really awesome for regular, everyday people, and I love it. I love it. It's good. I want a community for regular people, not for, those other people that you see, right? Okay. Language. It's one of the 6 cognitive faculties of the mind. Remind you, judgment, perception, consciousness, language, memory, and thinking. Language is essentially symbols that we use to describe our world. Now, let's go back. I know I've talked about widgets before, right? So let's say I put an object in the room. You've never seen this object. You have no idea what it is, but I look at it and I go, look, this thing is called a widget. And it has these qualities, it does these things, and da-da-da-da-da. And you take in the information, we're friends, we're family, we're loved ones of some sort, and you go, okay, noted, right? That's something else to consider. People are constantly describing things to us, and based on their status within our circle, we go, okay, I believe you. I mean, we've all got that one friend that tells us something like, I'm pretty sure it's probably the opposite of that. But most people, we hear it and we go, oh, that's interesting, right? And even if we don't buy in 100%, the next time we encounter the phenomena they were describing to us, we kind of just go with it. Or that's at least our knee-jerk reaction. So I describe this object to you and I say, this thing is called a widget. I've now used language to name it and describe it to you. This means that the next time you encounter one of these objects, you are going to experience thoughts and feelings in your body about this thing, aversion, attraction, whatever, based on what I told you. That is because I described it to you, and now you experience a description of reality, and more importantly, or accurately, you experience my description of reality. God is the biggest widget of them all. And the language used to describe us, God to us, is interesting. All of you know that I grew up in a Baptist world. Southern Baptist. I don't know if there's any other kind of Baptist, to be honest. Nobody ever says, I'm a Northern Baptist. But Southern Baptist, I'm always on the verge of saying the name of the school and church I went to, but then I remember that I have mentioned that there was abuse there, and it's still open, so I don't want to do anything nuts. But there was a description given to me about God. And this is going to seem a little harsh because I do have, Christians that love this content, and I have nothing against Christianity. If I'm honest, I kind of think Catholicism's really fucking cool. I like all the rituals, and I like that there's a rosary and all that stuff. And we all know the problems with that, but I'll be honest with you, in my experience, it's not just the priest you got to worry about. It's people everywhere, it's always weirdos. But I like where it starts. I also enjoy the Catholic Bible. A lot of the things that were taken out of it is for the Protestants. Kind of interesting. So I don't have anything against Christianity, but there is a weird way that God and Jesus have been described to us. Jesus is always depicted with these, bloody hands and feet, essentially, look what I did for you, you owe me, and there's a lot of threats, there's a lot of, finger wagging. You better essentially, again, this is just my experience. Maybe you've had a totally different experience. So, but you got to admit, most of us have had my experience isn't the anomaly here. You better act right or God's going to get you. God's going to do this if you don't do this. If you don't do this, God's going to do this. And it always reminds me, I'm sure I mentioned this relatively recently, about the Seinfeld episode where George goes to his therapist. I knew God was going to do something to me. It was the second I got successful, and his therapist goes, I didn't think you believed in God. And he goes, I do for the bad things. That's essentially your Judeo-Christian point of view, is that God is this punisher. And culturally, what we see with gods of all shapes and sizes is that they are a reflection of what the culture sees as a powerful ruler or an important person or whatever. It's kind of a weird daddy complex. That's what we do with, with politicians. We want to know that, daddy's here, daddy's going to help us, and that's how we see the president and the governor and all these, it's this weird pseudo father figure thing. Well, later on in my life, like when I joined the Krishna consciousness movement and adhered to that world in some ways, I wouldn't say I was eyeballs deep in the game, but I'm pretty deep in it. I was given a different description of God. More so, to go back a little further, when I began reading the Upanishads, the Isa Upanishad, those other ones with weird names, I saw a lot of similarities in the description of God in a good way, like really just describing the vastness and omnipresence of God. And in Hinduism, over the years, it kind of changes. Like at one point, Agni was like, if you read the Rig Veda, it's mainly talking about Agni, the god of fire, or the god of sacrifice, whatever you call it. Like the Rig Veda speaks more about Agni, doesn't really get into these other aspects of God. But, just so you understand, Hinduism is not thousands or hundreds of gods. It is one God with many aspects. It's actually monotheism, but people focus on certain aspects of God based on the things that they need or whatever predilection they have. Some people specifically worship Ganesh, but what you see over the years, over the eons, is that the main God kind of changes, At one point, Varuna is the head honcho, the god of the water. He rides a crocodile and has a bunch of nooses, which is kind of sick. But where I picked up in the game and where I went a little deeper was with Vishnu. So in Hinduism, you would have what's called the Trimurti, where you have Vishnu and Shiva and Brahma, and Vishnu is the sustaining aspect of God, Shiva is the destructive aspect of God, not in the way you're thinking of, but not in like a horrible destructive way, but kind of in a, all things must pass. And then Brahma is the creative aspect of God. You could also see Shiva as the thing that brings you home. And the description I've thought was really helpful was that you have this ocean that is Brahma, and then you have Vishnu as the thing that creates waves, the sustaining, the creative, like not the creative, but because it's Brahma, but like the force that pushes the waves. And then you have the fact that the wave eventually breaks and crumbles and goes home back into the ocean, or recedes back to the ocean. That's Shiva. It's a fun way of thinking of it for me. But Krishna was always depicted to me as your shelter, your well-wisher, the supreme personality of Godhead, the supreme enjoyer. Does Krishna in any of these stories ever get angry and hurts? But absolutely. Like he runs it, I believe Bhishma or Drona, I think it's Bhishma in the Mahabharata, breaking off a chariot wheel after he just promised that he wouldn't participate in the fight, but he would charioteer for Arjuna, but he wouldn't actually fight. But he breaks off a chariot wheel and tries to kill somebody with it. I think it's Bhishma. And Arjuna's like, no, stop. And he doesn't. I think Arjuna ends up killing Bhishma with like thousands of arrows. Bhishma's death scene, I've always said, is that alone is why Hollywood's missing the boat on not creating the Mahabharata saga. Instead, we've got 2 Dune movies now. So there's that. But even so, Krishna gets mad, but he's so angry because Bhishma is attacking his devotee. Arjuna loves Bhishma. Bhishma represents the independent. See, this all has this allegory, but Bhishma represents your individualized ego in the universe. Their ego, not in a bad way necessarily, but just your separateness, right? Arjuna represents, it could be the aspirant, the will to achieve higher states. And Krishna represents those higher states in the allegory. So it's Krishna crushing or killing the ego, and Arjuna saying, no, 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 no. So it's a thing. This is why we're doing the third tier of the Bhagavad Gita study group, because we're going to get into these things. There's your little plug for the third tier of Patreon, is that we're going to get into Bhishma and Drona and what Draupadi represents, and why these people are important, what Sanjaya even represents as the kind of third voice in the Bhagavad Gita. And why the Bhagavad Gita veers so off from the Mahabharata. It's voting day, and there's just young ladies on the side of the road with their corrugated sign, and people just waving, as if I had one candidate in mind, but since you waved and literally shook your ass on the side of A1A, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm changing my mind. Right before I went to cast my vote, I changed my mind because this guy waved at me. Nice, clean-cut fella, pleated slacks, nice seam in the fold in the front. So clearly, I'm just wearing running shorts because I'm going for a run. I'm a slob, so I should probably change my vote. So this is what Bhishma, and there's context in the story, whatever. So there are these moments where Krishna, and every time Krishna does something like this, it's always in defense of his devotee. There's these ideas about Krishna as he will go to the mat for his devotees. Even in his half-lion form, Narsimha, he is your protector, always has your back. You never have to worry about upsetting Krishna, right? This idea of God is you never have to worry about upsetting Vishnu, because part of it is that it lives within you, and it is you, that you are part and parcel of that sustaining aspect of God that sustains life. That's you. So why would you hurt you? Right now, it clearly says in these texts that, the bad things that happen to you, if you will, that's just due to your own ignorance. It's not, God's not hurting you. You keep slamming your hand in that door because you can't let go of the door. That's why. If you would learn to let go of the door, rest in that spacious awareness that is also Krishna, that is Brahma, then you let go of the door and you don't keep catching your fingers in it. So the language around these descriptions is so interesting to me because we are given a different point of view. That Vishnu, God is there to help you. Even Shiva, the god of destruction. Shiva is there to help you as well. It's all there to help, right? Even in, the Ramayana, though, Ravana gains his powers from, Shiva and Brahma and becomes, whatever. It's still, it's still Vishnu, Rama, an emanation of Lord Vishnu that saves the day, and even that allegory is still beautiful as to why Ravana was even created. Ultimately your material organism that you inhabit, that's Ravana, and Ravana's the Ramayana being Ravana's. It's just a documentation of this tantrum that he's on, is an allegory for you freeing yourself. And Hanuman is the courage it takes to let go of being Ravana, of letting go of what it takes to get the heart back, Sita, what it takes to find Sita in the Akosha Grove, and to bring her, to tell Ram where to find her. So language is huge. And I urge you to look at these other ways of describing God. You know, for instance, when a lot of authors and teachers have used the idea of the word Lord to also mean law. So when you would say the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, the law giveth and the law taketh away. If you adhere to the rules, the cosmic rules, the spiritual laws, things tend to work out. But if you try to violate those laws and game those laws and game that system, then it's not gonna work. It's not about being punished. It's that you just don't know the rules yet, and you're kind of willy-nilly. And once you learn the rules, this year, some of my chickens have come home to roost a while back. Some of my entitlement chickens came home to roost. And there's two ways of looking at it. I can think negatively, or I can just play the game and stick to the rules. And it turns out that, how the lotus comes out of the mud, that's really what my life has done. It's been awesome. So, it's still going, but I told myself, this is where I really get to put my money where my mouth is. And turns out, my belief was right. My belief system that I adhered to was right. It was correct. So, but the way we describe it, you think of, so right now I'm going over the second chapter of the Gita, which is, the yoga of the eternal truth, that yoga of the knowing of knowledge that is the soul, that you are the self, that you are this imperishable thing, essentially, and that you play this role as the organism, as Keith, as whatever. And the allegory behind that, which is really great. Again, look for that third tier. Go back. So actually forward into the Gita, when Krishna exposes his universal form to Arjuna and gives him mystical vision and allows him to see him as he truly is, then what you see is that Krishna is literally, actually, factually, however you want to say it, everything. Krishna is the illusion. Krishna is, it's all coming out of that sustaining aspect of God. That God is all of it. That it's all God, you're it, they are it. And when you realize that, you start to see if I play by these certain rules, and I play by the rules that God, Krishna, whatever. Every time I say whatever, I feel like I'm just trying to be diplomatic, but if you understand that this thing, source, whatever it is, and I do think psychologically there is some benefit in personifying it. I understand why. I at times will personify God and other times I don't, but when you understand that it only wants the very best for you, and that only you can decide to start changing the way the mind is relating to phenomena, then things start to work out. The world does change. But you have to change the language that you use around God. It can't be destructive, judgmental, jealous God. It's gotta be, and not just love, but just it just wants things to work out. And that is God. When you harness that knowing that things will work out, things will be all right. ALLRIGHT. They're all right. It's all right. Right? It might not be okay, but it will all be right. It will all be made right. But if we're using negative language and just shitty language to describe our experiences, to describe the world, then our mind will only look for the path by which negativity and hardship arise. But if we change our language to something more positive, something, where we find an effortlessness in life and a flow with life rather than having to, swim against the current or try to swim faster than the current, we try to lay in the river and go with it, then we see that there's an appropriateness to everything. And that's when we start to really benefit from all of it. But we got to change the way we talk about it. And, sometimes people like to think of God as just this pulsating fountainhead that everything kind of emerges from, which is great. I go there sometimes. And then sometimes it's helpful to think of it as an entity, a thing that, you are separate from to some extent. Don't be afraid to switch it up, to change, take what you need. If you need to see it this way for now and that makes you feel good, then do that. But you have this ability to bend and transform your reality. And this is a crucial piece of it. It really is. I diplomatically wish it wasn't, but I don't know what to tell you. The belief that something, maybe think of it as a deist, the idea of a deist is somebody, or the deity isn't necessarily, it's just this higher power, something big, right? So think about the language. Language is a cognitive faculty of the mind, and it is a series of symbols to tell the body how to feel about something. That's language. The language you use about God is going to dictate how you experience it. And if the language is of a jealous, judgmental, I'm going to get you if you don't follow the rules, God, then you're going to have that experience. But what if it was as just like Krishna, how Krishna is? The way Krishna is described. Even as Gopala, as little baby Krishna, it's just mischief and fun. As Govinda, it's fun. And life should be that way, and it can be that way. Go to the website, theinfinitesparkofbeing.com. Join the Patreon. If you don't want to subscribe to the Patreon, $20 gets you into all the groups as they come up. Just be sure that you get me your email address so I can get you on the invite and just add you to it, and you can hang out with us. I really think that you'd enjoy it. Again, it's a spiritual community for everyday people. Everyday folks. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, reach out through email on the website and read the About page so you know what you're getting into. All right, I love you, I love you, I love you. Consider what you say. Bye.